Hello there, here we are, English 215 students, almost to the end of the semester. I hope you're well as always, and I hope you're healthy as are your loved ones. The lighting's a little better tonight. I have a lamp near me, but hopefully it's bearable for you. We are starting a journey into Cold Mountain, which I'm hoping you've had a good start into already. It's over 300 pages. It's a 448-page novel. I am asking you, or requiring you, I should say, to read it in its entirety. Not summaries online, but actually reading it as a Kindle edition if you do not have the hard copy. It's the last reading I'm asking you to do for this semester, so hang in there. What I want to do is to give you a brief introduction to the book, into ways that you can get into it. And let me just jump right in and kind of get our discussion going here. My lamp's a little low there. But, so you've got a couple things. This is the debut novel by Charles Fraser, and it is basically a piece about two different narratives that coincide. There are two chapters that are basically follow one another. One will be an Inman chapter, W.P. Inman, and one will be an Ada chapter, Ada Monroe. And Ada is a character I think that we could easily overlook because Inman's battle is a more tangible one. He's trying to get home. He's deserting from the Confederate Army, and he is leaving from Raleigh, moving westward towards the Black Mountains or to Cold Mountain in North Carolina. If you can imagine that on a map, if you can imagine where Raleigh is on a map, and moving westward into the Western Mountains, like here, Inman's trajectory is moving from Raleigh. You can't really see Raleigh, but into the western part of the mountains. His will be a spatial travel, and Ada's will be more of an interior travel. But it's just as beautiful in its subtlety as Inman's in several respects. Ada, whom you're going to see starting in the second chapter, if you don't know her yet, is described as a pretty Southern woman whose father, Monroe, was a Methodist minister who recently passed away. She does not have money, though she's born of money, and she has no practical value, no practical usage as a person during a civil war that is much like the pandemic I'm giving this talk in right now. A world that is lost, that is barren. Not that our world is necessarily comparable to that, but you get my point. She needs. She is no longer a currency in terms of being a Southern belle who needs to marry. So in essence, she needs to find Ruby. Ruby finds her, and Ruby's going to have a journey of her own. Ruby is a local country female abandoned by her father, who's going to help Ada become more of a practical individual. So Ada's going to have to maybe even sell her piano, for example. The core of the novel is the romance between Ada and Inman. And much of the novel is going to be told in analepsis. A-N-A-L-E-P-S-I-S. Analepsis, which means a backward or flashback glance. If you ever watch a TV show and you see a flashback or something like that, you're watching an analytic technique. Proleptic is a flash forward. But much of the tale is going to go back to when they first fell in love. There are romantic evenings where small things like Ada playing the piano and Inman coming to her house for a drink, non-alcoholic, and kind of just falling on his lap at one point. This seems to be a real romance, and they're unsure how to leave it once Inman leaves the Civil War. Inman himself, and then I'll tell you a couple more things, then that'll be it. Inman is an incredibly interesting character. He's described as being laconic. He doesn't talk much. He is Southern, so he's going to be enthusiastic about the war at the beginning. And he's fallen very deeply in love with Ada, and is very concerned with his experiences during the war. In the first chapter, you're going to see lots of hellish references. This is not an easy novel to read in terms of its depiction of the human condition and the things that he sees at battle. We know that he's big and tall. We know that he's described as being handsome by women who see him. And he's good at one-on-one combat. So that's why he's done so well in the war so far. That's why he's lived. If you're asking what battles they are, they seem to be the battles of Fredericksburg, as well as other ones that he's been through. But he's fought on the Virginia front, and he is disillusioned with the war. And will abandon his southern post and make his way westward to Ada. This novel is going to be leading, ideally, maybe, to them reuniting. If you happen to read ahead, or if you've seen the movie, or anything like that, I ask that you do not post anything about the ending or anything about the latter fifth of the novel, just so other people can get to it. But oh yes, it by the way, it has been made into a movie. It has been made into a film with Jude Law playing Inman and Nicole Kidman playing Ada, and a lot of heavyweights. It's a 1997 novel. The film was 2003. Excuse me. So it's well worth seeing, and I'm going to incorporate something with the film for the final project. Inman has things he's got to let go of, like the horrors of war, the horrors of killing another individual. He sees dreams of mass body parts coming together, and they haunt him. So he's obviously has PTSD. He's also good. He's morally good. He's someone who's trying to do the right thing as he goes along, and he's going to encounter many obstacles in his path to get to Ada, if he does indeed reach Ada. So I think I told you the novel moves from a chapter on Inman to a chapter on Ada, right? So back and forth. You're going to see that particular execution that Fraser uses. I'd also think of, in terms of maps, if you can, again, think of moving westward from Raleigh, going towards the mountains of North Carolina. Try to be able to do that if you can. I'd also note the minor characters. Ada's father, Monroe, the Methodist minister, he gives sermons. They're both not from North Carolina. They're from Charleston. Was a rich Southern belle from Charleston, so she is an outsider. Inman is born and bred there, but she is the toast of the town. The boys like her when she comes. Monroe is her father, who teaches somewhat interesting sermons about death and about related topics that seem a bit unorthodox for a 19th century minister. Ruby, I don't even think she's a minor character. She's one you'll want to follow. She also has anger towards loved ones who have deserted her. She needs to let go of that anger. But she knows when to plant apples. She knows how to make coffee from the grounds. And she knows how to barter and trade and plant. These are invaluable things during the Civil War. So she's going to give a Ruby that kind of character foil, which is an opposite of a character, that's going to balance the two out. So the character foil for Ada is Ruby. Maybe Inman will find one along the way. I'd also just mention just a couple more things. I want you to get started on the reading or get deep into it for this week. Notice the music. Music is almost a spiritual thing in this book. There was a great soundtrack made about it. Many of the songs are fiddle songs based in Appalachian music, what would you call it? Dialect Americana. And basically, a lot of the songs deal with the larger philosophical question of the novel. And the philosophical question of the novel is, why are we born if we are supposed to die, right? And you can take that in a theological way, you can take that in a secular way, whatever way you want. But the novel is dealing with this larger existential idea of why were human beings born to die. And so you'll get that in some of the sermons, you'll get that in the music, and the music is haunting. If you get a chance, I'll post a link to it, to some of the music that comes from Cold Mountain. It's a soundtrack. A lot of traditional Appalachian songs, Southern songs that even in Louisiana you may have heard. So the soundtrack, the music is something very important as well. I guess the main other thing that I want you to get from this piece is that the larger way that people have read the novel is that it is an allegory for Homer's great book, The Odyssey. And don't worry, if you haven't read The Odyssey, it's okay. I can give you some things I think you'll know about it. But some of you probably read The Odyssey. It's about a man who's returning home. Odysseus is returning home to his Penelope. He's been away at war, and he's taking ships home. And while he's away, Penelope is being courted by other men, which sounds a little bit like our novel. And so the reason I mention The Odyssey to you, and again, if you don't know this book, it's okay. Tell me if this doesn't ring a bell. The Cyclops, the island of Circe, sirens. Sirens are the creatures that they're female that sailors encounter. That when they hear them, their song drives them to dash themselves against the rocks. They tempt men, right? All of these things from Greek and Roman mythology are how we're supposed to read Inman's journey, and maybe Adas as well, in the North Carolina mountains. Let me give you an example. All right, so at the very beginning, let's say you've just started our piece. Inman's at the hospital in Raleigh. If you haven't caught it, he's getting clothes and all those things to skip out of town. He's going to climb through the window, and one of the people he meets is a blind man. I'm on page 17. I think this version is the same as the Kindle version. Inman was thinking of the blind man. He had bought a copy of the Standard from him that morning, as he had done every morning lately. Inman pitied the blind man now that he knew how his blindness had come about. For how did you find someone to hate for a thing that just was? What will be the cost of not having an enemy? Who could you strike for retribution other than himself? And it's a strange thing about retribution and killing, and not having an enemy. I guess he's thinking you have to see it in order to make it an enemy. The blind man's going to give him a map. This is from Greek and Roman mythology. The blind man is a metaphor for Tiresias, which is a blind seer, often used in Sophocles' plays, who is given this gift of foresight. He could see into the future. Tiresias in the mythologies also has it's like a hermaphrodite, has breasts of a woman as well as being a man. He's something like cursed from the gods. I forget the exact reason, but he has the ability to see. He's a seer, a psychic seer, I should say. So when Inman meets people along the way, when he meets a dog, it might be the Cerberus, it might be a dog from hell. When he meets this man, it's Tiresias. When he meets females, it's Odysseus meeting the sirens. Like, if you can, get in touch with the mythological element of his journey. Even if you don't know Odysseus, I would imagine, the sirens or some of the other parts of Greek and Roman mythology. So keep that in mind. There's also Southern folklore. He sees lights in the forest at night. These are supposedly haunted spirits looking for home. There's going to be one more point, I promise, and then that's it. There's going to be two kind of people that are the enemies here, right? So it's a Southern-based novel. I do not think that Fraser's saying the Confederacy is superior to the North by any means, but certainly the Federals, right? The Federals are hunting any Southern deserters. The Federals are winning, the Union, that is. So that would be one thing that he has to watch out for, number one. Number two, as an interesting historical note, there's something called the Home Guard in the South. And these would be individuals who might be older or infirm and can't go off to battle, but they would watch the Southern home to protect it. And sometimes they would, according to this novel, do degradations of their own. So he's got two things he's got to watch out for. Balance the intensity of the Inman situations with the subtleties and the beauty of the Ada ones. Make your way. This is a book, once you start, you won't be able to finish. An hour here, an hour there, and you're going to make great progress. Good luck this week. Take care. I hope this introduction to Cold Mountain worked.